Jimmy Butler trade rumors are heating up. Ja Morant lies to the media before dropping the dunk of the year, and Nikola Jokic's comments are just as concerning as they are hilarious. All that and more in today's episode of NBA News. Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Buckets. If you're over on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and drop a like. And if you want to enjoy this show as an audio-only experience, check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The video is also on Spotify if you want to watch the video, but somewhere else. So first things first, I want to talk about our main story, which is the Jimmy Butler trade rumors. Shams just earlier today put out a tweet saying that the Heat were fielding offers for Jimmy Butler, saying they're opening to listening to offers for him, and that the six-time All-Star is believed to prefer a win-now contender in any trade, which doesn't necessarily shock anybody. Now, I wouldn't say that even this happening to begin with is all that shocking. The Miami Heat had a good bit riding on them having a strong start to the year, and they've been woefully mediocre, as you can pretty much anticipate. This still results in them being in a playoff seed in the Eastern Conference, but ultimately it is very clear that their contender level status just is not really there. We haven't seen Jimmy Butler elevate himself in the playoffs in a while. He is now 35 years old. He's not that great for winning regular season games. Bam Adebayo currently has the worst layup percentage of any player in the entire NBA, not just scrubs or not just stars or, starters or whatever. Among literally every NBA player, he has the worst layup percentage. So that's how bad he's been this year, on top of the fact that him shooting threes turned out to be a complete bust, which I pretty much anticipated. I saw a lot of people very strongly buying into the Bam Adebayo hype after this year's Olympic run, and I just wasn't really quite as sold. However, I can't tell you that I expected him to play this bad. On top of that, their young players are really not that outlandish in terms of their value. So in terms of making a trade for some other players to make this situation work, that avenue does not really exist. Tyler Hero's been awesome this year, but I don't think any team is valuing him at 25 point per game level of value, which is what he's currently putting up right now. But that's in large part because there isn't much of anybody else to score the ball on this team. Terry Rozier has been pretty disappointing. Some of their second year, third year forwards like Jovic and Jaime Jaquez have not made some significant strides by any means. So there's just not a lot here to say we need to keep doing this. And Jimmy, being at the age of 35 and making the amount of money he is, it makes sense that he might be like, hey, I don't really want to be here. Doesn't seem like y'all really want to be here. Last year, Pat Riley made a lot of comments to the media that were directly criticizing Jimmy Butler. So I am not really shocked to see it come to this at all. So with all that in mind, what exactly would this trade look like? What exactly is Jimmy Butler's value, and what team has that and wants to offer that for Jimmy? So of course, first of all, he needs to go to a contender, or at least a team that you could realistically anticipate becoming a contender upon the addition of Jimmy Butler. So the teams that I had listed out here are the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Atlanta Hawks, the Indiana Pacers, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Houston Rockets. Now, as of right now, I would not really categorize most of these teams as contenders outright, but ones that within an immediate addition of him or the year after could definitely make something like that work. I can't believe I did not. I'm almost certain I put the Denver Nuggets on this list, but I guess I didn't. So let me add them real quick. Denver Nuggets as well. They are another contender, however you want to line out that conversation. Most of the teams that are very strictly and very strongly in the contender conversation right now are not really in the position to trade for Jimmy Butler, nor would they want to. So I think Golden State and I think the Lakers could theoretically be contenders with him added there. I think the Atlanta Hawks go from what looks like is going to be a good playoff team in the East to potentially a really good one. I don't know asset-wise how much the Pacers can give up. I think the deal would maybe be centered around Benedict Mathurin after the hot start that he has had this year. That would be interesting. I don't really know if Jimmy really fits the play style of this team, but who knows? Maybe they do. And I think, if Indiana's able to turn the year around, if Tyrese Halliburton's able to stop playing like complete dog shit in every away game, and Jimmy Butler's there as your secondary ball handler, that could be that could be promising. But I do think the Indiana Pacers, given they were a conference finals team last year, could talk themselves into Jimmy Butler making them a contender. The San Antonio Spurs, I think this would be more about like a year after or two, which I think makes it less interesting. I think he's just a little too old, but I do like the idea of him there otherwise, just because you could probably get him without putting up too many assets on the table. The Houston Rockets, I would not mess with what they have going on right now. However, they do have Jalen Green's juicy contract. Reed Shepherd as an asset they could potentially move. Kind of interesting, kind of worth considering, but I wouldn't exactly be quick to jump on it, especially because Amen Thompson is such a big part of that team, and he's not exactly a floor spacer, nor is Jimmy Butler, and nor is Alperen Şengün really. He can kind of shoot threes a little bit, but it's not really his game. So that spacing situation might get a little awkward. The Denver Nuggets are an interesting one to me. To me right now, the top three teams would probably be the Lakers, Warriors, and Nuggets. I don't know how I feel about the Nuggets going for Jimmy, because on one hand, I think a big problem is that Jamal Murray has this very I'm only really going to try in the postseason mindset, and Jimmy Butler has that very same mindset, and I don't know if I want to have two players on that bullshit, but he would. I don't know. I really don't know, because, I mean, unless you're trading Jamal for him. If you were trading Jamal Murray for him, you could talk me into it purely just on the virtue of I think Jamal is a more overpaid player for being a worse player. So I don't know. That is compelling to me. I think there's been rumors of them moving Michael Porter, so you could potentially make that contract work. Whether you go with Jamal and Jimmy or just Jimmy and no more Jamal. One, I like the fit of that second option more, but I don't know if I like the idea of it more. I don't know. All I know is I would not be shocked if they were in the conversation, because Denver very clearly needs to mix things up in a rather dramatic way, and they don't have a ton of assets to do it. They do have some contracts to throw around, though, and I don't think Jimmy Butler is going to have a super high asking price, so I would expect them to be interested, and that's the same reason I think the Lakers and to some extent the Warriors would be interested as well. The Warriors actually do have a decent treasure trove of assets that they can throw in this deal. I don't like the Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler fit, not even referring to the potential explosion that could happen in that locker room, but also just, again, bringing this back to the spacing thing. You're going to have two non-floor spacers on the floor, three, assuming your center can't shoot, which more likely than not, you're not going to be able to get a center that can. So there are some tough fit things with Jimmy. Jimmy is at a stage and has a play style where you kind of want him to be your number one guy, or at the very least, you want him to be your primary ball handler. And a lot of the contenders in the league either don't have the money, don't have the assets, or don't have the proper context around him to actually make a trade for him make sense. So those are the teams I would be on the lookout for. Maybe some other team just comes completely out of left field. That's been known to happen. It seems like it's happening more and more in recent years in the NBA. But yeah, Jimmy Butler trade, maybe the next all-star caliber player to be on the move. We shall see. Then we move on to Franz and Brandon Ingram, both suffering some pretty big long-term injuries. Franz got the exact same injury, a right torn oblique, that Paolo Banchero did that has sidelined him, and I believe he is out indefinitely as well. And then Brandon Ingram gets a severe ankle injury, and a part of that report from Shams also suggested that the Pelicans were actively searching for either an extension or a trade, and this injury factor kind of puts a bump in that road in terms of moving him, because depending on how long he will be gone, according to Rudy at least, he will be out until at least January 3rd. That makes trading for him a little bit more difficult of a prospect. Probably not an injury that you're going to have to worry about him like falling off because of it. I think he'll be fine when he returns. However, Brandon Ingram was already a player that's complicated to trade for. He's kind of in that similar boat to Jimmy Butler, where it's like, man, this guy can really score inside the arc, but how is his off-ball game? How is his three-point shot? How is he next to another ball handler? Gets a little bit more complicated there. I would definitely say that Ingram is a better three-point shooter than Jimmy Butler, but regardless, not a high volume one. Not in this league. You really want your ball handler to either be if you're an offensive player, you either want to be a lead ball handler who does other things, or you want to at least be decently talented off ball scoring the ball. And Brandon Ingram's just at that capacity, primarily because he's just not much of a catch and shoot guy. With that said, this isn't 2K. You're allowed to trade injured players. It just is less appealing. And I think a lot of teams that would be doing a Brandon Ingram trade would be doing it out of a degree of desperation. And you can't really make a short-sighted you can't really make a short-sighted desperate move without, actually having a player available for that desperate move. So that sucks. Franz being out also sucks for the Magic because, man, that Paulo going out, then it's like, oh, wait, Franz might be all NBA. Oh, he's out too. Cool. Well, I guess that's the end of that. Chris Middleton also played his first 2 games of the season. The Bucks lost their first game to the Boston Celtics, which in my recent Bucks video, I said that upcoming stretch was going to be a test for them. Didn't win the first round of that test, so we will see how that goes going forward. Ja Morant, as I believe we discussed in the last episode, but we might not have, he vowed to stop dunking. Meanwhile, very soon after he said that, he got a phenomenal dunk on Kristaps Porzingis doing a reverse double clutch in the air. Yeah, that's just some filthy shit. I don't even know what to tell you. I think that was also just instinct coming alive. Also, in terms of like the types of dunks that you can get injured on, I think that one was relatively not that bad. He was already jumping that high to begin with, so his fingers only lightly grazed the rim. He didn't like catch himself up high and put himself in a compromising position. He was already on his way down. It wouldn't ever really change his momentum one way or the other, so it's not quite a one-to-one example. But I do hope that he does continue to dunk because I recognize, I completely understand his disposition to the idea of being like, I just want to be healthy, but I feel like it kills the fun of Ja Morant if John Morant isn't trying to punch the ball into the rim any chance that he gets. Following losing a final NBA Cup game in the most boring way possible. What? Okay, that was weird. Back to what I was saying. Following losing a final NBA Cup game in the most boring way possible, allowing a fourth quarter comeback in a game where Dallas shot more than 3 times the free throws of the Grizzlies, a 26-7 Mavs run in the final 8 minutes in the fourth quarter took over 45 real minutes of time. Memphis spent the next week playing with a chip on their shoulder, being 3-0 since and 10-2 since their last losing streak. They have moved up to 5th overall in the NBA's power rankings. Ja had 32-9-9 in a very big win against Boston. Jaren Jackson Jr. played 21 minutes in the second half. Clark, wow. What am I supposed to go off of Clark? Wow. I don't remember anything about Clark from that game, but whatever. Zach Edey is still hurt. And just some more Grizzlies stuff because Rudy is shoehorning this in. Although, to be fair, the Grizzlies have actually been a large part of the discussion in the recent week or so because they have been phenomenal. Their offense is number 1 in terms of points per game, and they are 5th in offensive rating as of now. Said it once, I'll say it again. The Grizzlies are good and people are sleeping on them. I think very strongly that this is the deepest team in the NBA and it's not even close. And I also feel now more than ever that depth has mattered now more than ever. So yeah, the Grizzlies are a team to watch out for. They have more in store for you than I think you might think. And I also recommend watching them just from a fun standpoint. I think the team where like, wow, I don't have to watch a single player on this floor and be like, man, this guy sucks. Why is he playing? You don't ever have that thought watching a Memphis Grizzlies game. You will have that thought watching a Nuggets game. I just finished watching the Nuggets Wizards game last night, and oh my God, that was fucking dreadful. We'll get to more Nuggets talk in a second. Something to watch out for. Jrue Holiday has seemingly completely fallen off on his corner threes. Last year, he led the league in percentage with a fucking scorching 60% shooting on three-pointers out of the corner. This year, he is down to just 30%. Cut in half. It's a small enough stretch, small enough sample that I'm not too concerned about it, and I think he can turn it around. But that was a huge staple of Boston's offense was, yeah, if Jrue's in the corner, that shit's going in. Do not leave him open. You better not bring help defense off of Jrue in the corner. And like just that ability to completely erase one player from the equation on defense, just be like, yeah, we don't have to factor that guy in. That spacing is something we can account for every time. Unfortunate that that's dissipating, and hopefully it does not fall off to this degree, or maybe hopefully it does because I kind of don't like the Celtics, so I'm okay with it. There are going to be fewer NBA games over this next week as the league is trying to really draw your focus into the NBA Cup. First games tonight of the actual quarterfinals is going to be the Magic versus the Bucks and the Mavericks versus the Thunder. And then on Wednesday, tomorrow, we have Hawks versus Knicks and Warriors versus Rockets. We take a look at these standings. This is just entirely the first round matchups. As for like my predictions, it's fucking hard as hell to make these kind of predictions, but I'll try to do it anyway. Single elimination could really go any way. The Mavericks have kind of been on fire, and OKC is missing Chet, so I'm going to say Dallas wins that game. The Bucks have been good lately, and the Magic are missing their two best players, so we're going to go ahead and say the Bucks win that one. Knicks versus Hawks is interesting. The Knicks and Hawks always have a fun game when they match up. The Hawks have been cooking lately, but the Knicks are also looking more like the contender they were hyped up to be going into the year. So I don't know. That's probably the one that I feel the closest on. I'm going to go with the Hawks just because I think it's fun. The Knicks are definitely a better team, but I'm feeling Hawks for this day in particular. And then Rockets versus Warriors. I'm going to go with the Warriors because Steph and the Warriors historically own the Houston Rockets, even though the Rockets as a whole are way better this year than the Warriors are. I don't know if it's a guaranteed thing in terms of their individual matchup just based off of that, but the Rockets can very easily win. Obviously, these games can all go anyway because they're single elimination. That is the fun of single elimination. I really don't understand the people who like professionally do predictions for single elimination game sports because like anything can happen. It just takes one fucking wild factor that isn't going to happen any other night for something completely different to be the outcome. But yeah, that is the fun of single elimination, and hopefully that energy is felt throughout with the NBA Cup, and I hope you tune into it tonight. I will eventually probably make an NBA Cup video once we get to the championship. But yeah, player of the week, we got Luka Doncic over in the West, and we got Tyler Hero over in the East. As I mentioned earlier, Tyler Hero being one of the only bright spots for the Miami Heat over this recent stretch. They've managed to go 3-1, all while he is averaging 25 points per game. And Luka, who has started the year off very poorly, both numbers-wise and impact on winning-wise. I think his team won like 4 or 5 games straight without him. 3-0 since he's returned, and 29 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. That is what I am talking about. Once again, we are getting... actually, that's not true. A couple of weeks ago, we got the Harrison Barnes versus Giannis one, where it's like, you know that image with the different dragons, and there's the serious one and the goofy one? I feel like we keep getting that East versus West most of the time for player of the week, but, you know, Giannis is in the East, to be fair. With that said, just a quick standings check-in. OKC still at number 1 with Memphis quickly climbing up those leaderboards. Houston right behind them. Dallas right behind them as well. The Warriors, after a little bit of a skid lately, are doing slightly better. Clippers still hanging around. Nuggets still... I mean, the West is just a litany of decent teams. I don't even know what to do with this, man, because, like, look, the Sacramento Kings, they are 1 game below 500, and they are the 12th seed in the Western Conference. If we ever go to the East, the 8th seed is 4 games below 500. So 4 games below 500 gets you the 8th seed in the East. 1 game below 500 keeps you out of the Western Conference play-in tournament. So yeah, just brutal. Looking over in the East, the Wizards are a historically bad team. Still managed to beat the Nuggets last night. The Toronto Raptors are one of the most impressive, are having one of the most impressive tank jobs I've ever seen. The Philadelphia 76ers have actually been winning some games lately. Joel Embiid had like a 30-point game. It took like 28 shots to get there, but it looked a lot better than every other game that he's been playing. The Pistons kind of bottoming out, and then these Pacers continue to be disappointing. The Bulls are here. The Nets are here. The Hawks, as I mentioned, have been good and intriguing. The Bucks have been creeping up the ladder, as have the Miami Heat, as have the Knicks. And the top 3 seeds remain the same. I imagine the Magic spot at 3 is probably up for grabs for the Knicks, though, given that they are missing their 2 best players. Going to breeze by a couple of clips of the week. First one here coming from Mike Brown.
Just need to be methodical by stacking or playing the right way, possession after possession after possession.
I hear you.
After possession after
yeah,
possession.
It's a strenuous
after
process.
Possession after possession.
Yeah, like it's a never-ending battle. I get it.
After possession.
Yeah.
After possession. After possession.
Yeah, it's a tough job, Mike.
After possession. After possession.
How much longer is this?
After possession. After possession. After possession.
Right.
After possession.
Right.
After possession.
Every possession counts.
After possession. After possession. After possession. After possession. After possession. After possession. You guys got what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right?
I think I got it, Mike. I don't have anything to add besides for that. Wemby had his like dramatic highlight of the week. I'm not even going to show you. I'm not going to give you the audio for that. That gives the NBA all the more opportunity to copyright claim us. But the block, which is pretty standard, but then he walks into this one-footed 3, which like I would get pissed at you as a coach if you took that shot. But then I guess if it goes in and you're Victor Wembanyama, who am I to argue with it? Close game with the Toronto Raptors and the Knicks earlier. This is not too shocking because, as I mentioned, the Raptors are pulling off this perfect tank job where they just keep playing in competitive games, but just barely losing at the end. This block by OG here is a perfect showcase of like what the Knicks defense is supposed to look like. Cat just serves as a barrier, and then on the offensive end, he works perfectly as a catch and shoot option. So hopefully we can get their defense has been improving. That's been climbing up the ladders. And honestly, if the Knicks defense as a whole was a little bit better, I think OG and Anunoby would be in some DPOY conversations. This isn't a clip. I just went with the photo because the actual clip is kind of bad. But Chris Paul moves up to second all-time in assists. He gets a fancy ball that has a bunch of names of his different teammates that he has assisted throughout his career, saying, quote, "I swear, man, I'm so grateful to be away from my family. Y'all became my family. I know I'm a lot to deal with on the court." That's funny. "But I just love to hoop, and I hope that y'all get the opportunity to play as long as I have. Thank y'all so much." That's very sweet. I like Chris Paul. I don't care what anybody says. Here's Jokic's, we'll call it interesting reaction to their loss to the Wizards.
Reaction. In my country where I'm coming from, after this kind of stretch, you're gonna get a paycheck that is a little bit less than usual. So maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe a little motivation in that way. And one thing was the name of the great quote, like being benched. Being on the bench. I think that's a really good motivation too.
Dude wants heads. He's upset. I think there is a lot to be said about Jokic making a comment like this because he's generally pretty conservative about the things that he says, especially in terms of criticizing his teammates. So, yeah, there is some negatives to take away from that, and it's also just funny. For this news segment of the video, for this news video, we're going to be focusing on the funny aspect. We're going to be doing a video tomorrow about the Denver Nuggets, so be ready to be on the lookout for that when it comes out. But yeah, I do think that the Nuggets could maybe use a little bit motivation. I think it would also help if they didn't have one of the worst front offices in the entire league. I just want to point out for this play, this wasn't an ISO. So many people were quoting this being like, oh my God, Draymond ISO'd on Rudy Gobert and dunked on him like it was 2018 LeBron. There was a back screen by Steph. Now, he could have done a little bit better to fight through it, but he also was focusing on not getting fucking crossed over by Draymond Green. And I saw some people in the comments being like, oh, shouldn't get caught on a screen by Steph. Dude, I don't care how big you are. If someone who's 210 pounds is just standing behind you, you're not going to walk through them like they're not there. And if you do, guess what? You're going to get a fucking foul called on you for it. So I don't know what people wanted here, but it is very funny how much this play is very clearly fueled by Draymond Green's hatred of Rudy Gobert. It is the hateable rock versus a hateable immovable object, or whatever the statement is. Just so much to hate going around here in this clip. But yeah, last thing, a take from Sam. I don't know if I'm not gonna try and pronounce your name because I don't want to mess it up. But from Sam V. Maybe I'm too high on Zach LaVine. I don't know, but I think there's a real chance that he's the most underappreciated player in the league right now because of that contract. Legitimately awesome scorer, can play it on/off ball. Okay defensively on the ball. There's just a lot of stuff there. Yeah, that's about as complimentary and as positively as you can spin Zach LaVine's defense as you can. He is sometimes competent when he is defending in the isolation. However, playing good defense in the modern NBA is all about your ability to defend in space and off of the ball, and Zach LaVine is unfortunately dreadfully bad at that. So I'm going to say, sure, he's maybe a little bit underappreciated because if he was making $25 million a year, then every team in the league would be happy to have him. But we can't pretend like the reality of his contract's not there. That said, I do think the notion of like any team that trades for him is objectively going to get a net negative. I just don't think that's the case. I've seen some Nuggets fans since the Jimmy Butler report coming out saying like, I would rather have Zach LaVine because of the 3-point shooting and how he would fit within that system. I don't know if you want to add another bad defender to a team that is already ranked 17th in defense, but I get where they're coming from on that front. Zach is a very good player. Just a very overpaid, very overutilized, has too much of a role in the success of a team level player, but good nonetheless. But yeah, that is it